Well, I wish we caught that on camera because
Let's do a little replay. A little replay.
yeah, a little replay, folks. We started, yeah, rewind, but there is no tape. We weren't recording when we actually said something a bit funny. Of course, that happens, right? Yeah, no, rewinding a little bit here. So, hello, first of all.
Oh, hi.
Oh, hi. Oh, hi.
Right.
You're
There's that point.
listening. Thank you for listening.
Call response. Yes.
Thank you for listening. If you are, thank you for watching.
Thank you for
You're all
reminding us to
menches.
be accountable. Yes.
We love you. Thank you so
Yes.
much. I think we're a bit loopy this evening. You know, actually, you know what? Let's just be quite frank, because we don't have to say who the person is.
No, not at all.
Once in a blue moon, this happens to the best of us. We were actually supposed to have a guest come on the show, but they ghosted us. I don't think now ghosting, I just realized that's like quite a that's kind of like quite intentional. I don't think it was actually intentional. Like I know ghosting.
What Rachel and I are trying to say is that we had someone that was going to come onto this recording this evening, and it appears they may have missed the memo, or there may have been something lost in translation, like two ghosts passing in the midnight winds, and somehow just flew right through each other, not knowing that they had bumped into another.
Oh my gosh. Okay, we're off to a great start here. Wow. Wow. Okay. This is what happened when you were not like totally prepared to maybe just do a one-on-one with Hiiro and I, even though we thought, you know what? Let's just record anyway. Why not?
Let's do it. Welcome to Pardoning Our Minds.
Welcome to Pardoning Our Minds, as we do on a not just daily basis. I feel like minute by minute is my life is pardoning my mind. Parting sounds like pardoning my mind. Yeah, Hiiro, how are you doing? I know your partner's a bit under the weather, but how are you feeling?
I'm doing okay. Yeah. Like Craig and I celebrated our 1-year anniversary yesterday.
That's right.
Is unbelievable. And in gay years, it's like 7 years. We're like cats and dogs. Oh
yeah.
My. Forget about the bears. And
what did you guys do?
Well, we went for a lovely brunch at a place called Le Petit Belge, which is a little independent kind of. It's kind of casual, but has a fancy name.
Yeah.
But a cute little, if for those that live in Vancouver and know Robson Street, it's a nice little kind of, you go in, you order, you sit down, they bring in the food to you kind of thing, kind of brunchy. But very,
but in a way, it sounded like you're explaining what the way a restaurant works.
Well, yes,
you go in,
that is how
you go in, you order, you sit down, you eat some food.
Oh, and then you sit. And then you sit down in the chair. Exactly. And if you want a good core workout, you don't lean your back against the backrest of the seat. I mean, it's amazingly dexterous, the hands on the fork and the knife. And I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about.
I don't know what you're talking about either. You've taken it to a different level. Wow, I love you.
But we grabbed brunch, and then we decided to be tourists in our own city and take the little aquabus ferry at English Bay across the Granville Island, where we, had to bob and weave through lots of tourists and people that were staying in one place and not walking through civilized human beings. It was like human, like Canadian geese and humans' bodies were Canada geese that kind of move on their own pace and block your way of traffic and direction. This is a really great start.
I think that if you're listening to this, I'm sorry if you've knocked off and you're done. But if you are watching this and you're seeing my facial expression, I think I'd like to replay the last 30 seconds, because I think my face started like this, and it started to slowly go like.
And clip that.
Yeah, that's basically, I think, what just happened. That silence was my face changing shapes listening to Hiiro's story.
When autistic people share stories, we sometimes forget that there's not all the need for all the simple details. So it's just get to the nuts and bolts.
That's okay.
So brunch, Granville Island, came back. We were going to go for dinner. We're going to go for dinner next weekend instead, when both of us are feeling in our tip-top shape.
Yeah.
And but it was great. And it was super, perfect, chill, lovely. And we had a nice little cozy night in.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
That's big. I know that's really big.
It's huge. I just want to thank the Gay Academy and Gatorade for this wonderful
good thing there's
opportunity.
a big G on there. That just works really well. The Oscars are happening right now.
I
as we
know, you
record
know,
this. So it's funny that you did that.
I know.
Yeah.
By the way, if anybody is getting scammed by these, click this link to donate to take away like this banner on the YouTube cast. There are YouTube channels that are trying to get money from people.
Oh, they've
If
been
they
doing
don't
that
have cable,
forever. Yeah, I know.
yeah. So be aware that if you fall into that, because some people may be going through that right now, and that is definitely not cool.
You're so sweet. Did you get caught with that?
I'm not going to say if it was
Oh
myself or
no.
anyone else. I've heard some things through the grapevine, and I just thought I would
Oh,
put that out there that if something happened, you go and get your money back and call your bank provider and tell them what's going on. I'm sure more than enough
aw.
people are going through something similar that the banks are like, oh, yeah,
Yeah.
this sounds right. Okay.
It's so frustrating. Like, I mean, this is what I think is interesting. Wow, this is like
Whatever. Continue.
such fluff conversation right now. But it is frustrating. It's like, okay, we live in a day and age where streaming is the thing to do,
Yeah.
right? Why why is there not a streaming platform like a Canadian one? Maybe there is. You got like a piece of fluff that was just flying. That was so interesting. It was looked like a piece of static. Why you really have to watch this episode and not listen to it? That was
Mm-hmm.
weird. Um, so why we live in a day and age with streaming, but yet why can't I just go on Prime or something? I'd pay even $20. I'd be like, here's $20. I'll watch the Oscars.
Yep.
Why is that not a thing? Maybe it's
I don't
because
know.
I guess it's because these cable networks like CTV, whatever it is in the States, I don't know, like I guess they kind of have bought almost the rights and they want people
Oh,
to watch it from their station. Okay, like I guess I get that.
right. Right. But
You
then it's
know,
kind of, but then it's, yeah. Sorry.
but I do think
Yes.
it's I do think it's interesting though because who the fuck has cable anymore?
No one has cable
Like
anymore. My
who?
mother has cable, and I'm like, okay, so what? You have cable to watch Chicago PD, Chicago Fire, and Chicago Med, and oh my gosh, Chicago Gangbang? Like, seriously, is that all that's on TV?
What are you talking about?
There's this whole franchise called Chicago, and they have like three different series, or like
Oh, you're talking
medical,
about like
police.
NYPD, like or
Yeah, like that's what's
okay,
on, and Judge Judy, and like game shows, and like soap operas, and that's it.
and the news, yeah,
Yeah, that's
yeah, and
it.
some sports, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. The
I don't
cable
know.
doesn't have anything to look
Get
forward
with
to
the
anymore.
program, people.
I
Offer it on
know.
a streaming service. The
Schnapp,
other
schnapp,
the
schnapp, schnaps.
annoying thing is we exist in Canada. We will never be the
Yes.
50 of us first fucking state.
No.
But the interesting thing is that forever, for years, it's like, oh yeah, watch the Oscars. Like it's international, but you can watch it so easily from the US. Try watching from Canada. Ugh, it's so like it's impossible.
It's impossible.
So,
It is impossible.
totally fluff. This is my fluff rant. Fluff rant over.
I think we should call it a frant.
A frant. Yeah, I like
Franting.
that. Franting is over. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's we've coined that. Okay, so fluff rant,
Yes.
frant is over. On to some more serious stuff, perhaps. I'm definitely in a better mood now that I was this morning, so I thank you for that.
Oh, you're so
And I thank this
welcome.
podcast for that, I guess. I was saying to Hero before we started recording and realized that we weren't recording. That yeah, this morning I had or just get down to brass tacks, folks. We're gonna get down to like something more serious. I wonder if this has ever happened to you. I finally felt the urge, the need, like it was just the right timing. I felt like talking to a group of individuals that are very close to me. And the timing, like I just said, I'm reiterating myself like a million times, was just felt right for me to share a story about myself when I was 18 years old and when I first had my very first experience with major anxiety, like to the point where, like, you imagine a panic attack and the symptoms that are associated with a panic attack, like any symptom, just throw them all at you all at once, but let them last for a full week straight with no reprise.
Hmm.
That's what I experienced. And I was telling these people this story for the first time, and I actually don't really share this story that often. I think I should. I think for the benefit of others that might have experienced something similar to what I did. But anyway, the point of this particular story in a story was that I was telling the story, and I felt very vulnerable because I even prefaced it by saying, I haven't talked about this with a lot of people, but I feel like I need to share this. It's just the right timing. And it just made me feel like I wanted to share it. And before I was even finished the story, and I know it sounds like I'm going on and on about it right now, you'd be like, Rachel, shut up. But it wasn't, it was at the point where I just saw their faces and they were just glazing over what I was saying. And then all of a sudden they got distracted by something else. I wasn't able to finish my story. And it was completely, I felt kiboshed. No one acknowledged what I was saying or how it was pretty big of me actually to share that. I don't even think there was any words really exchanged at all. It was more just like looks of like, nodding and then change of subject, essentially.
Yeah.
So it was really tough. I excused myself from the circumstance or the environment, took my cup of coffee because I knew the tears were about to come. I
Mm.
removed myself from the situation, went up into the same place. I'm not even telling you who it is or where I was
No, it's fine.
because I don't believe in telling on people or throwing people under the
Hmm.
bus. But anyway, I removed myself from the situation and I cried.
Mm.
And I thought to myself, okay, what was bothering me the most about this? Was it because I was sharing this story that was so traumatic to me at the time and still lives inside of me? And it's because I haven't fully been able to use that in my journey and to grow from it and for a lack of better words, like get over it?
Hmm.
Or is it because I felt rejected? Or is it a mixture of both?
Mm.
Or
Okay.
was I judging the time? Was it not? Then you start to second guess yourself. You're like, well, maybe it wasn't the right time, the right place. Maybe, maybe they didn't know what to say because they're not used to people talking about that kind of stuff. So
Right.
give them the benefit of the doubt. Like, should I be angry? Should I be like, and so but that's the thing. So what happens with me, I told my partner about this, how it upset me. And he's like, I did notice that. Like he noticed it. And he's like, you have every right to feel the way you're feeling. So it was
Mm.
helpful to talk to someone about it that maybe was removed, but also was in the situation, I guess, to
Yeah.
sort of feel a bit validated with how I was feeling. But what
Yeah.
I couldn't do, which is probably the next step in the healing process or would have been the next step, he said, if you can find it in yourself and find the strength to do this, confront them about how that made you feel in the right way. Like obviously not in a way that you're reprimanding somebody or really calling them out as in like a blame game kind of thing.
Hmm.
But could you take that next step to say, hey, like this is how it made me feel, and and also just letting them kind of be able to explain maybe what was really on their minds or what they saw from their point of view is maybe not what you saw from your point, whatever it was.
Yeah.
But I couldn't do it. I didn't
Mm.
want to hash it out because I think what happens is I start to feel embarrassed that I even have to talk about these mental health challenges because I think there's some friends that maybe just, and this is just me projecting, that some friends maybe just think that that's Rachel and like we're just kind of sick of hearing about it,
Hmm. Okay.
maybe. So I started to
Okay.
go into that mindset
Right.
and then I started to feel really shitty about myself.
Mm.
But it also, I don't know if they realized, and even like I said, I prefaced it, it was a pretty big share for me.
Hmm.
Even though I
Yeah.
might overshare with certain things, it was a pretty big share. But maybe some people can't tell the difference between a big share and like the little shares that maybe I seem to share too often about anxiety. I don't
Right.
know.
Well, first and foremost, thank you for sharing with me this kind of synopsis of what you experienced and the impacts it had on you in the moment, and even to right now, even if you're
Oh, it's
feeling a bit better.
still, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I think people underestimate how much vulnerability can be consuming in us as human beings. I think in some ways, some people don't realize how sensitive and how much bravery it takes for people to open up about experiences, regardless if it's a recent or maybe a more distant experience. The
That's
fact
true.
is that if someone is taking space, then hopefully the people around you are making the space for you to be taking it.
Hmm.
Giving
Say
the
that again.
equals.
Say that again.
So one thing that I kind of learned about holding space in, even when I used to work for Lululemon,
Hmm.
one of the conversational pieces about in meetings or in workshops or learning development sessions, there were kind of like four principles or the like four not codes of conduct, but just basically like guidelines. And so one of those kind of guidelines was taking space to make space. So take space or make space.
Hmm.
So if you are,
Take space or make space. So if you're going to take space, you need to make space.
I kind of think
I'm
of it
trying to
as like,
trying to just, or is it like,
I think it's like knowing when to speak and when
oh,
your
okay,
voice is to would be making the most impact. And
right.
if you feel that whatever is being shared around you may be better for you to just be an observer and to actively listen, so other voices around have the ability to have their voices heard. It's kind of a guide. It's kind of like a suggestion of knowing like when to exert yourself and when to listen. And
Yeah.
that's not actually what I'm saying in terms of your situation,
Yeah.
but in terms of when you're saying some people kind of glaze over or they might have shifted the subject matter, for example,
Yeah.
kind of just like moved on.
Yeah.
I find that's something that I deal with constantly in the respect that I feel that I'm trying to contribute something that is of meaning and purpose. That it's
Hmm.
whether if it's for me to feel like I feel safe to reveal something and feel supported by the people around that I feel connected to. That even that said, it's really fascinating how sometimes others around you might not fully realize maybe the intensity or the depth, the sensitivity of what you are sharing. Like it takes a
True.
lot of courage to share something that vulnerable, and then
Yeah.
for people to either tune out or to maybe disengage, it almost kind of feels like there isn't a sense of active listening or an active sense of like taking something in and perhaps either acknowledging what you've shared, and if even more in addition acknowledging and then maybe getting curious further with you to make sure that you one can share and expand if you wish, or to
Yeah.
feel that sense of closure, to feel like is there anything else that we is
Yeah.
there anything we can do, is there anything that we can contribute, or how are you feeling from sharing that?
This is, I think, I wouldn't even have cared as much if the latter you're just talking about happened. It was
Mm,
more that there was absolutely no acknowledgement.
right.
And
Fair.
so I think that people have to remember, like even if you can't relate to something that somebody is telling you, where majority of the time maybe it's you can't relate to something, that's okay. But as long as you acknowledge it and you're like something like oh, it's pretty easy, people, like, hey, that must have been tough. I'm sorry to hear that.
Yep.
You know, those are pretty easy responses, but again, it's acknowledgement. I'm not saying I need to be the center of attention or, pay attention to me. It was just like, and it was interesting because we were talking, it was a very relevant subject matter. It wasn't like this came out of nowhere. Like we were talking about
Sure.
stuff that was very relevant to what I ended up sharing.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, like I already said, reiterating again, if somebody's talking to you about something, especially if they preface it as being like, "Hey, like this is deep and this is something that I haven't really shared with many people, if anybody," just give them a little acknowledgement.
Yeah.
Just a little,
Yeah.
just, and you don't have to understand what they've gone through. You don't have to have obviously you don't have to have directly understood exactly what they're going through or knew of somebody that has gone through the same thing, or you don't have to even like get it at all. Just again, it's just that little nod of acknowledgement, right?
Absolutely. No,
So,
I get that. And I appreciate that, you've been able to have that experience, even if it may have not been the outcome perhaps, or again, the feeling that you may have thought you might have had after sharing
yeah.
that with those people. So I
I
appreciate you sharing that.
and I think it also just I'm just thinking about this right now further. It's like we've had this conversation here and I off the podcast about more me than you, I think. I'm pretty sure of feeling like not wanting to be a burden on people.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of anxiety sufferers, mental health sufferers, it's something that we can't always control, and it's something that I think a lot of us feel deep down inside. We don't. It is embarrassing. It's
Mm-hmm.
embarrassing to me because I don't want to feel this way. I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to, and I don't want to burden people to like bring them down. So then what ends up happening is we keep things inside and we don't talk about it.
Yeah.
So then it's just shitty when you actually do talk about it and you don't get the acknowledgement.
Yep.
That's
Absolutely.
that's kind of what sucks. So
Mm-hmm.
then you unfortunately, you talking about me, kind of like reel yourself back and you kind of like go back into my shell again. I'm like, oh, okay,
Mm-hmm.
I shouldn't have shared that, maybe.
Right.
Right. So
Right.
then I'm like, oh, I have to stop talking or sharing anything about how my anxiety or how any mental health stuff affects me. Like I really like, the people that you think love you the most, like maybe not all of them need to hear it. Who can you trust to hear it? Who's going to give you what you need back?
Right.
And just because people love you, not everyone that loves you is going to give you back exactly what you need in that moment too. Like I think there's right. Yeah, I think some people are great for that. Some people are great in other circumstances to give you what you need in totally different areas of your life. But that's another kind of eye opener, awakening, I guess, moment for me too. It's like not everybody in my life who I think is super close and loves me the way I love them is going to be maybe who I need in the moment to listen.
Yeah.
It might not be them. So maybe that's another like lesson for myself too.
I mean, honestly, people that are listening to Rachel sharing and what she is feeling, I think is important to acknowledge, and that your sharing is helping so many people, hopefully. And even if it's just
Well,
one person that hears this and is like, you know what, I just went through that whenever it may have happened. That's what the power of kind of pardoning our mind is the ability to be like, this is the stuff that's happening, and maybe it's shitty, maybe it's a little bit, you know, not the easiest to share and talk about or divulge that it happened. But these situations that come up are the experiences that really are formative for us in our lives and that help us navigate humanity and society in a different way after the experience may have happened.
yeah, and you know what? It's interesting because that is exactly the reason why I wanted to start this podcast to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
All those times ago, all those recordings ago, like was to share a personal experience that hopefully others can see themselves, even one person see themselves reflected back
Yeah.
and to say, oh my God, I'm not alone. Oh my God, there are other people out there that are navigating this too. And there are going to be ups and downs. And she might look like she has her shit together, but it's not always pretty and it's not always going to look that way. And that is normal.
It's completely normal.
Yeah.
Absolutely, it is. There was one thing that you mentioned to me today that I'm not sure if it's beyond what you wrote
Oh,
or asked me, but I do kind of want to ask you because I think it's an interesting subject and something that you could touch on for 5 minutes. And this doesn't have to be a long discussion. But you asked me offline about do I'm gonna butcher how you said it, but
no, I know what you're
basically,
going to say. Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
do I have an issue or have I had someone in my life that has been overly optimistic or overly positive in a
Yeah.
way where like it's caused a sense of negative or irritation or even
Yeah.
like a
You're saying it
retaliation in
so
some
much more
ways.
articulately than I put it. I was like, basically, I said here, do you find overly positive people annoying? I think that's all I
Oh,
said.
maybe. And then my mind
Super.
naturally overanalyzes and thinks that about it
I
more
love what you.
psychologically.
No, I love the what you got out of my sentence to you.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yep.
I really
Yep.
do. And I think that it probably came out of a bit of what the people I was talking to today, they are very overly positive people. And
Hmm.
I love them and I adore them. But I guess it was more, what? What I should have said. And by the way, folks, I hate the word should. And I've said that so many times this episode. I don't know why I keep saying the word should. Like, that word drives me crazy. That's a topic for another conversation. But what I could have said was that I guess because my default is not positivity.
Hmm.
It's my default forever has been the negative, finding the negative first and, going off the deep end with like the worst case scenario. That's my default. So I guess like when I have friends or people in my life that, sometimes it's very uplifting, their default is 100% positivity. Like, I don't even think they ever get stressed. I know that sounds like, well, it's impossible. Like, people do get stressed, but I've even asked some to these people. They're like, no, I don't really get stressed often. I think it's more just, I feel like it's hard to relate
Yep.
so much for me because and then I guess there's some jealousy there, to be frank.
That's powerful to even say
Yeah,
that there
I
might be
guess
some
there's some
jealousy there.
jealousy there. Like, I mean, fuck, I'm like, God, I wish I could be like that. That's not my default though, you know? Um,
Well, yeah, that's a fair point. It's not everyone's default, and this is something that's come up in conversations with as of late in different people in my life,
oh,
in
okay.
terms of just understanding how like the metaphor is the glass half full or half
Mm,
empty,
hmm.
or looking at the greater good versus the greater evil. And I think where you and I are maybe a little bit different from another is that I've always been in eternal optimist. That's my nature. I've always been someone that's tried to look at the greater good and someone that's always looked at the way out of something instead of the way away, like something away from something. But that also stemmed in a lot of ways from overcoming the anxieties that I still battle with today,
Yeah.
but understanding more about how my patterns are and learning how to unwire those patterns to try and neutralize it so it doesn't overwhelm me. Because I for sure will go on those more hysterical or down spirals when I'm
Hmm.
especially in a space where I'm trying to be my own cheerleader and psych myself up, let's say. For example, even trying to pursue full time work as a contractor, self employed again.
Yeah.
It's
Being your own
very
cheerleader. Yeah. Putting
it's very
yourself out
nerve
there.
wracking,
Yep. Yep.
and you have to be like. And some people
Yep.
say can view it as being delusional, and there is a bit of self aware delusion in my case. But at the same time, it's if you don't believe in yourself enough to actually go after what you seek or desire or anything in that realm, then no one else is going to ever think about that you either. Think that way about you either. And if they
Good.
do, then you're lucky.
Good point. That and to kind of blanket that in a way, it's like basically if you don't believe in yourself, or if you don't love, like, amen, RuPaul, like if you
Yep.
don't love yourself, first,
Yep.
right? What is she
It's all
saying?
the
What's
same.
the saying again? It's all the same.
If you can't love
Yeah.
yourself, how the hell are you going to love
You're gonna
someone
love
else?
exactly,
But
exactly.
as overused as that phrase is now, that slogan is now, it is very much can be dressed up in different wording in different context. And so I'm very much of like,
It's
well,
so true though. Yeah.
but like I noticed myself a lot really being having grown up around a lot of more maybe uh more pessimism perhaps, or maybe not seeing the outlook on something. I think there has been a lot of the opposite where I have been around people that have seen the outlook on something in a way that gives you hope or that gives you desire, gives you belief, perspective,
Yeah.
prospective. But it's definitely difficult when you get into that trap, that inner saboteur, which again RuPaul refers to a lot, and we all have one. We all have it in different ways.
Oh,
And
mine is like working overtime, I swear, every day. You
yeah,
know, and we're again, cliche statements, we're our own worst enemy, but like there's a reason
hmm
those statements exist and they're overused because they're so true.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
You know, I think that I love positive people. Wasn't that I don't love positive people.
No, no,
I
no,
think
not at
it's
all.
also like the overly positive some positive people, they don't want anyone to get into their like they've got a mojo, they've got like their own vibe going on, and it sort of
hmm
feels like some positive people, it's like if you go and kind of screw with that because you're more of a negative folk person, then there is more of that shut down sometimes. Well, you know, you're ruining my good vibes, which I kind of get that too, right?
hmm
But
hmm
what I find with you, even though you are more in that positive light, you still listen though, and you don't squash me down. You know, you let me say my shit, and you call me out on my shit, and
I do.
I appreciate that as well. But you don't uh block me out,
No,
you know?
no, no, no. And
And
that's a skill that I've had to develop as well. It's
yeah,
more about, I mean, even in terms of when people have argument or disagreement or conflict, or you can tell someone else is maybe not aligned, you don't feel aligned with someone's actions and behaviors. I think there is a skill set in mind that people can choose to learn of how to mediate and how to lean into love and lean into vulnerability, to lean into possibility and put yourself in their shoes without the person, let's take me for example, sacrificing or feeling unheard or feeling like that they're being, you're letting yourself be almost kind of like an innocent bystander of someone else's actions.
mm,
And there's a fine line between pointing
mm-hmm.
the finger or retaliating or starting an argument or an accusation. And
Yes,
instead saying, like, here are the facts that, from my perspective, I'm noticing. Help me understand if I'm actually understanding it correctly. And if I'm not, can you speak from your perspective what it is that you feel is happening? And can we come to an understanding of why that might be the case? Like
yeah,
really having that
yeah.
elevated, neutral, nonviolent communication is an opportunity for friends, families, coworkers, even who knows, maybe like a guest or a customer to a service that's being rendered with that guest or customer in a store, a restaurant. You can have those forms of communication, but you also can't expect others, if you want to try and mediate, you can't necessarily expect someone else to have that. So then for
For
yourself
sh
to hold that space for you and them, that's where it gets really interesting.
Oh man, that is, and again, that is where, again, circling back, you have to, like, how can you, like, connect with or love other people if you can't be strong in your own body and, you know, hold that strength for yourself and be confident? Because I still don't think I really am, which is
Mm-hmm.
why it affects me so much still,
Sure.
right?
Sure. Yep.
Because I still don't fully love myself. That sounds
hmm
terrible to say, but I
But
don't.
it's raw. It's
I still
honest.
don't fully love myself. I still don't fully accept myself. And
Okay.
so
Yeah.
how am I expecting other people to accept myself if I don't accept myself?
hmm
Right? And
Powerful.
I think that like where to kind of conclude this conversation is I was listening to a neurologist on Mel Robbins' podcast,
hmm
and he was just talking about how it all really comes down to this is just super simple. Like think to yourself, are you leading and living through your heart or through fear, which is your essentially like coming from thoughts in your brain? So are you fear-based or are you heart-based? And it's all about
mm
how do we move into the heart space,
I
really.
love that. I love that.
How do we move into the heart space? Because I got to tell you, most of my days I live in the fear space. I just
Fair
do. And
enough.
I think that a lot of people probably do, but
Yeah.
to learn to recognize that, acknowledge it, and how to get back into that heart space, really. Yeah.
And again, that comes from your nervous system. It's
Yeah.
all winded in that nervous system of being overly wound up and stimulated by so much distraction and things that cause you to not be calm enough or neutral enough to then have those thoughts to drop inside.
Yes. Yeah.
Our society and our environments and our Western culture, and I would argue even internationally now in these days, unless if you are so removed from a space where you can have no distraction other than thoughts in your mind, and you don't have the proper awareness or tools to bring the frequency down, you
Yeah.
will always have that chatter in the mind that may not serve in
Mm.
that kind of idea, leaning from heart as opposed to the brain, which are your thoughts, your fears, your beliefs, and all
Yeah.
the advanced human shit that we back in the day, in the primitive days, never probably had the same way of
No,
understanding
no,
them.
no.
That's part of why people make money through therapy and mental health, because they're trying to understand the same brain that we're trying
Yeah.
to understand and provide us tools that maybe understand how to go about doing it and softening it. So that
Yeah.
you hit it right on the head with that.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate you. This feels like it was a semi-therapy session
Yeah,
with
my
Dr.
favorite.
Prince.
Oh my God, that's so sweet.
Dr.
But
Prince. Thank you, Dr. Prince.
oh, you're so welcome.
Send me your invoice. After this is over, we'll see, or we can just we'll do it again and you can be in the hot seat this time.
I honestly love this
Can
idea. I
reciprocate.
think this is
Yeah.
a perfect side
Yeah.
conversation series that we can lean into. Literally.
Well,
I think that would be great.
let us know your thoughts, folks. I know it's been a little while since Hero and I have been, I know, right? Oh my God. Oh my God. Seriously, I feel like that sometimes. Some of those memes nowadays where it's like, this is what's actually going on in my mind. And there's people doing, I don't know, some weird folk dancing or line dancing and accordions going crazy and they just look bonkers. I feel like that's just me all the time. But anyway.
Well, that's what you sent me when you sent me that Instagram video of how to locate your Wi-Fi password on your
Yeah,
router
but
and your modem.
but that was different though.
Oh,
So, oh
okay.
my gosh.
Okay. Anyway,
Anyway,
that is our show for tonight, folks. We hope you somehow
tonight, today.
followed along to 5% of it. And if you followed along to even less, that's a win.
And if you completed the watch of this video or listened to the whole thing, thank you.
For
I don't even
understanding
know.
us.
Right. Oh my God. Anyway, good grief. Okay. Well, good night, y'all, or good morning, or whatever time it is you're listening to this or watching this. And thank you so much. We love you. Bye bye.